So thank you, Nick, for offering to present this, actually, just in advance. Let me say that. It's great that the network seems to be working now in terms of interaction between GEP members. So there's a sunny view on your background, but I suspect that that's not always the case in Northampton.
Well, that's a virtual background, unfortunately.
I know.
Yes, as you know, the weather in England is kind of unpredictable and not necessarily the same as the weather in Abu Dhabi year round.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Yeah. Well, it's getting hot here now, but I come from Ireland where the weather is completely unpredictable.
Yeah.
One thing you
the
can
weather
predict
here is okay right now. You know, we're slowly moving to the summer. We're waiting for the Queen's Jubilee next week as well. So fingers crossed the temperatures will hit the better end.
Okay.
Yeah, we can start, Prof. Berry.
Right, we got 13.
17.
17, I got 4 panelists as well. All right, so good afternoon from Abu Dhabi, ladies and gentlemen. I know it's a different time in different parts of the world where you might be, but we are delighted actually that 2 things are happening today. First of all, it looks like our GEP portal is working and that people are talking to each other and talking to us about things that they might do with us. And so that's number 1. And number 2 is that Dr. Nick Naumoff and one of his German colleagues, Marcus Pillmeyer, had agreed to do a joint presentation with us today. So Nick is actually going to do that presentation because Marcus is not available this morning in European time. But I will introduce both of them anyway, because the topic is useful and important, and I think that Marcus's role will probably come out throughout this, and Nick is going to present that to us anyway. But the interesting part about this presentation is about teaching during the pandemic, but from a multidisciplinary approach, which is interesting, and I'm sure that's how Nick and Marcus came together in terms of developing this presentation. But just to give you a bit of background, you'll have read on the flyer anyway, Nick is a senior lecturer and he's department head at Northampton University in the Faculty of Business and Law. He hasn't declared this, but he's a human geographer by training with a PhD from King's College. He's a senior lecturer in Northampton, but he's worked in hospitality and tourism, particularly in UK, the US, and he's a native of Bulgaria initially. Marcus is a professor of destination management and development in the Department of Tourism at Munich University of Applied Sciences, and his research includes citizenship, participation in health, and sustainability. So I think there's where, between the 2 of them, they have this multidisciplinary background. So I'm looking forward to hearing the presentation. Nick, thank you again for doing it for us, and welcome to Abu Dhabi Virtual GEP.
Thank you so much for this introduction. Do I have the rights to share my screen now?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, so, right. Okay, I hope everyone can see my screen, and I sincerely hope that the connection is good enough so you can hear me well, and you can see the slides and you can see my face. Yeah,
it looks good, Nick.
Okay, so once again, thank you for your kind invitation to be part of your seminars. On behalf of Marcus, who isn't able to join us today, we both like what you do, and we hope you continue with the amazing initiatives to bring the academic world together in this interesting format. So I've decided to talk about something which I believe we've all been through in the last couple of years or so, the necessity to develop new forms of teaching and learning, to upgrade our skills and intellectual capacity in order to tackle the challenges which were imposed to us by the pandemic. So what I'm going to present today is part of a teaching fellowship project, which me and Marcus conducted together. I will share the details of what we did. I'll explain why we did it. And I'll also tell you a few insights about what we learned from having to develop a brand new model from scratch, and also trying a few different things from an innovation and also pedagogical perspective as well. So as you can see from this slide, the project was about tourism education. I'm part of the Faculty of Business and Law, and I work at the Department of Events, Tourism and Hospitality. Marcus also work at the Department of Tourism in Munich. So we're both geographers. We are both interested in destination management and sustainability practices as well. So this was the main theme of the project from a content perspective. So Professor Barry already introduced us, so I'm not going to repeat anything about us. The only thing which I'm going to say is me and Marcus have a long relationship. We've been working together since his time at Deggendorf Institute of Technology, and I have been a visiting professor there since 2018. So this is how we met, and this is how when our work together started. So the teaching fellowship, which I will share more details later on, was an idea which we wanted to develop for quite some time. It just happened to be during COVID, so we had to readapt the idea and embed the virtual contents instead of face-to-face contents, which were initially planned. So in addition to our shared interest in tourism, we are also interested in what we call active and blended learning practices. So this fellowship gave us the opportunity to test a few things and see how students from different backgrounds, different nationalities actually perceive this rather new, especially for Germany, approach. So just to give you a little bit of a context here, we all know about the realities of COVID, the necessity to bring new innovative teaching methods. COVID has brought many challenges to different societies, places, destinations from a tourism perspective. And we in education had to adapt to those challenges pretty much overnight. I remember when the first wave hit, we literally had to go online for like less than a week, and we had to prepare all lectures and materials and support sessions in a virtual format without even know how this is going to be delivered next week. So from an industry perspective, tourism has been one of the most, I would say, hard-hit industries in the world due to lockdowns, mobility restrictions, social distancing. Virtually in most of the world famous destinations, tourism switched from over-tourism to no tourism at all. So you may ask, okay, but this is the industry. How does this impact, or how has it impacted the teaching tourism and hospitality students? Well, the number one challenge was that I guess we are all in the same boat here, but those who work in the tourism, or those who have to teach tourism at university and college levels, we had to literally prepare students for an industry which did not exist at the time. It was extremely difficult to present the highlights of tourism as an industry to jump in, as a sector which has awful lot of things to offer career-wise. And all students were asking, okay, do you think that tourism is going to come back after the pandemic? Do you think is going to recover anytime soon? All of those questions which you can guess, I wasn't particularly able to answer in details at the time. So in line with all of those restrictions in educational institutions, however, I tend to think that the pandemic brought a lot to us from the positive side of things. We had to test our creativity and innovation. We had to become more visionary educators. We had to learn new skills, even if it meant working with technologies at the time. So in other words, it brought us an opportunity to change, an opportunity to develop, and to get off the beaten track. Something which, at many places is not really a norm. So from a more practical point of things, in tourism, we rely a lot on site visits, industry visits, placements. All of those got suspended during the pandemic. We had to, for example, think about how to conduct virtual field trips, how to put guest speakers and employers, how to organize mock interviews in the so-called virtual environment. Many universities, I think, in UAE as well, but also all over the world, put an incredible investment in flexible and technology-led educational platforms. We can't really think about right now how we're going to go back to basics and just teach face-to-face. I don't think I will be able to do this because I kind of appreciate the value which technology has brought to the classroom, to the learning experience, and also to my teaching practice, last but not least. So in terms of innovation, we've seen many examples of how technologies, how actually COVID can trigger new practices which embed creativity and innovation. In Australia, for example, we've seen the emergence of many virtual field trips. Those technology enhanced practices and solutions to not fully replace the field trip experience, but to provide something different, which we've never thought about it before. In my own research, at the beginning of the pandemic, I did an applied research project at my current institution. And it was basically comprised of focus groups and interviews with final year students. And we wanted to find out that particular switch from face-to-face to the so-called emergency remote teaching model, which we implemented. So I studied student engagement, I studied tutors engagement. We talked to the students about what are the pros and cons of this new model. And surprisingly or not, we found that the overall satisfaction was at a very high level. And students kind of not only accepted the new normal, but they thought that some of those practices should have been implemented a long time ago, which means that they worked and they should stay even when we're fully back to normal, as we would like. So the teaching project, which me and Professor Pirmeier conducted, we wanted to see how the new normal is going to look like. And we wanted to test new methods of teaching and learning in the classroom. So we initially thought about a module which fully embraces the idea of a global classroom. We are both connected to various, academic and professional circles, and we imagined a brand new module based on destination management and sustainability to include guest lecturers and industry professionals from all over the world who would come to Germany, and more specifically to the Munich University of Applied Sciences. So, of course, we faced the pandemic and we faced the challenge of not being able to invite all of those people. And we had to find another way how to provide meaningful but also interesting experience to the students. So we thought about how about having the internationalization in the classroom, but in a virtual format. So we talk to people from different places, as you see later on from the contents. We had guest lecturers from all over the world. And we also did research studying student satisfaction with this new innovative approach. So we combined active learning practices. It wasn't only a guest lecture, as you see later on in the slides, with virtual teaching, providing students with series of different workshops led by those international faculty members. The whole project was entitled Sustainability in Practice due to the nature of the contents. We wanted to study in particular sustainability in practice in the context of COVID. How do different destinations approach sustainability, sustainable development with a focus on sustainable tourism? And of course, what is the new normal looking like in the post-pandemic world? So the outcome of the project was a brand new module, which was developed at undergraduate bachelor's level. And this was taught between February and July 2021 in a virtual format. So in total, we had 15 sessions. So a little bit more about the two institutions. The Munich University of Applied Sciences is one of the 15 universities of Munich. It is one of the largest universities in Germany and the largest University of Applied Sciences in Bavaria. So the Department of Tourism is also the second largest out of the 14 within the university. I belong to the University of Northampton. So we are located in what we call the Midlands area. So we are a public university, and our Department of Events, Tourism and Hospitality isn't as big as the one in Munich, but we have embraced the active learning teaching and learning strategies since 2017, way before the pandemic. So we moved from a slightly larger old school campus to a brand new city center campus, which embraced the philosophy of small group teaching and active learning. So in real worlds, we do not have big lecture theaters. We don't teach large groups of students. We only deliver workshops, and my largest class is 20 students. So we have a model which includes pre-sessional research activities, the actual workshops, which is in the heart of the model, and also the post-sessional activities, which stretch the knowledge of the students and provide them with further learning opportunities. So the Teaching Fellowships Initiative, this is a long-term project which was started in Munich back in 2007. So it runs into two different streams. On one hand, there is the Teaching Fellowship Scheme, and there is also a separate Research Fellowship Scheme. So fellows are invited to teach in Munich for 2 or 4 courses in their area of expertise. And in addition to this, they have to complete a teaching project. So the language of instruction is English. The students study in English together with exchange students from European universities, mainly funded through the Erasmus scheme. So the fellowship includes the horarium for teaching. It also covers the travel costs for the scholar and allowance for accommodation in Munich. Typically, each fellowship runs for 6 months at a time. So the actual project, as I explained before, we had 15 online workshop sessions. So the idea was for each workshop to include a different destination, a different guest speaker as well, and students had to prepare for the workshop well in advance. So following the active blended learning model, for each destination, students were provided with journal articles to read, most of the time written by the actual guest lecturers. And also students have to conduct their own research about sustainability and international tourism in the country destination in question. So in total, we got 24 home and Erasmus students, and also some students from partnering universities all over the world. So you can see here on the slides where did our guest lecturers come from. We had sessions on Australia, South Korea, Hong Kong, New Zealand, Oman, all the way to Germany, Switzerland, Finland, Haiti as well. So we wanted to include more, but as you know, it is not easy to find people to participate as guest lecturers. And also we have to say that we didn't have any budget to actually compensate our guest lecturers for their time. So we fully relied on our academic partnerships and our own academic circles to actually find those people to share their knowledge with us. So for each session, we wanted a particular focus on the issues, challenges, and perspectives of sustainable growth at the places and destinations where our tutors were based. So we shared these ideas with them, and we also briefly talked about the module in advance. So for each guest lecture, we kind of had like a half an hour informal meeting to present the idea of the course. And also we did send them like the syllabus, the assignment briefs, and the module handbook as well. So one of the most interesting part was the actual assessment. The assessment was divided into 3 different parts. For the first part, students had to choose a case study, which could be one of the destinations in focus or any other place in the world. So the task was to focus on policies on sustainability and sustainable development, lack of interest on sustainability, current issues, especially in the context of the pandemic. The second part and the third part were self-reflection based. So in part 2, we wanted them to reflect on knowledge, competences, and attitudes in terms of what they learned about sustainable tourism, what they learned about innovation, creativity, different approaches to sustainability. And the last bit was their own experience with the module. So whether they were happy with the module format, whether they were happy with the contents, with the tutors' engagement, the quality of presentations, and the pre and post sessional activities. So all of this was one assignment. And as you can see, students had the freedom to express themselves in writing. So we later on used their assignments to collect everything as data and reflect on the actual experience. So for each session, this was the model which we introduced. As I explained before, the sense-making pre-sessional activities, this was the student research on the actual destination in focus. So they had to do research about, for example, sustainability policies, to find statistics about international tourism, to learn a bit more about the industries in those respected destinations. The workshop was presented by the guest tutor. It was a 1-hour workshop plus a question and answer time at the end. And then the follow-up activities. This was the further reading, complemented by discussion boards and some other e-activities, as we call them. So we also evaluated each tutor. So for each guest lecture, students had to do evaluation. So you can see examples here of how the evaluation was completed. So they had both open-ended questions, which they were able to share their experience with the guest lecturer, and also the classic quantitative-like questions, which they had to basically rate their lecturer on the scale of 1 to 5. So, of course, we collected this data, and we evaluated the performance of each lecturer for our own sake of knowledge. So what happened? What was the student perception, and also what we as lecturers taught of the module and the module format. So I'm going to share with you the student perspective and also the tutor's perspective later on. So from a student perspective, what we had was very positive feedback about the contents of the session. So students engaged with the interactive activities. They enjoyed the variety of the activities and the meaningful discussions as a part of every session. They particularly liked the insight from various countries, and especially those ones they had limited knowledge about. For example, Haiti, Bulgaria, Oman, which are not among the top case studies, which are studied in Germany, and I would say in England as well. So you can see some quotes here, something to look forward to. Was shared by one student's multiple perspectives on sustainability, and of course expert knowledge as delivered by the tutor. The feedback about the pre and post-sessional activities, students thought these activities provided a good opportunity for them to learn about the destination in advance. But at the same time, they thought of them as time-consuming, and not all students actually engaged with them all the time. So the feedback here was that those activities needed to be better integrated into the workshops. Like, for instance, one of the comments shared was that we should ask the guest tutors to do these activities and engage with them in their presentation. The overall verdict was that this was an interesting module. It was relevant to their knowledge, and other courses should take this approach as an example, which is a direct student quote here. On the not so positive side of things, as I mentioned previously, a lack of focus. This seems to be one of the major issues. Students felt like although it was absolutely fine to have different approaches, different perspectives in terms of how tutors delivered their sessions, some of them lacked the specific contents on sustainability in some sessions. There was more content about destinations, about presentations of the countries. You know, everyone is proud of the place and the destination they represent most of the time. So different teaching styles. Some lectures were lecturer-led, like classic old school model, where one person would talk for an hour or so, whereas others were more student-led. So they were more open for discussions, for student activities. We had few people who used, for example, things such as Padlets, things such as Kahoot, or any other interactive tools. Another interesting comment was about the time. 1 hour lecture plus Q&A for the majority of the students was considered as not enough to engage with the topic. And in particular, students would like to have more time with the guest speakers, and also more time to ask questions which were not necessarily focused on sustainability, but onto the tutor's expertise and experience as well. What we as tutors can take about the teaching and learning format was also that next time when we run this module, if we follow the same format, of course, we would definitely need to standardize things among the guest speakers. And we need to provide like not a template, but let's say to establish some ground rules for what to be delivered and what the main focus of the talk should be. We really had some differences in terms of some lecturers taught more about sustainability from a conceptual perspective and not necessarily about the destinations, while others focused on the destinations, but not necessarily about sustainability in practice. So you can see here on this slide some of our insights from the projects. So we both thought this was an interesting, highly valuable learning experience. This helped us establish more links with international faculty. It helps us learn new skills as well. We both felt like the engagement of the students was good, even though the engagement with some of the pre and post-sessional activities wasn't ideal at times, particularly towards the end of the module. It was really difficult to organize all the guest lectures to deal with people into so many different time zones. Like on one hand, we got Dr. Serafin, who was based in Haiti at the time. So it was serious time difference with the Caribbean. Then on the other hand, we got Urs, who was based in Australia, and we had to find things about how to work out. And also, we were not able to be flexible because the module was fixed into a particular time slot every week. So we were totally dependent on technologies. Sometimes the connection didn't work out, and it wasn't our fault. It was, you know, very poor connection from the other end. But it's not good for the students when, due to technical failures, we're not able to, for example, start on time. So about the assessment, we both found the assessment challenging. It took us an awful lot of time to actually mark the student assessment, but also to collect and analyze the data. However, we felt that this was the right approach, and this provided students with interesting assessment format and also insightful feedback about how this module was run. So improvements, we definitely need a predetermined session structure, as I said before, one which prioritizes the focus on sustainability. We both felt it would be necessary next time to have a backup plan in case of tutor non-availability and last-minute cancellations. It happened to us a couple of times, and we had to find someone to literally step in a few hours before the lecture slot. In terms of the engagement with the activities, we would like to have a better structure, a more structural approach to how the activities are integrated into the workshops. And we are more likely to listen to the student feedback here and work together with the guest speakers to see how these activities can provide more meaningful experience for the student. Last but not least, more time for student-tutor discussion. Definitely. Next time the module will run, we'll definitely have 2 hours in total, maybe, for everything, including the feedback, including the Q&A time, and also the introduction to the guest speakers as well. So this concludes my short presentation. I hope I was able to give you insights about what we did, and also I hope that you learned something from the process and you would be able to share your own perspective. I'm pretty sure you have all done some very creative initiatives in your own practice, and I can't wait to hear whether you've done something similar, whether you've experienced some of what we experienced as well. So if any of those topics are close to your research expertise, you have our contact details on these slides, and we'll be very happy to get in touch with you and discuss how we can work together in near future. So once again, thank you for the kind invitation to be with you, and I'm open for any questions you might have now. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Nick, for the presentation. And let's now open the floor for any comments, clarifications, notes, questions from the audience. You can just unmute yourself and participate. Yes, we have here Dr. Josie Petman. Yes, you can open your camera as well. It's fine.
It's very interesting presentation. I don't see where to open my camera, but you have my picture.
A very nice picture.
We do, yeah.
But I do have my camera too. But I don't see the option to open the camera.
It's fine.
My question is, how did you go about planning your module? Was there a team to plan it, or did individual instructors plan the module? Maybe I missed that part. And how did you go about identifying, selecting, and inviting your participants?
Yeah, that's a good question. Thank you so much. The module was developed from scratch. We didn't have anything similar in Munich beforehand. And back in my own practice in Northampton, we do have several modules which are on sustainable tourism and responsible tourism. But, you know, these are first and second year modules, and they're not specifically focused on sustainability in practice. They're much more conceptual / theoretical modules, especially the responsible tourism one. So we started with nothing. We started with no templates, with no agenda, with no examples of what to develop. Our idea was to focus on destination management, to focus on sustainability in crisis in the context of pandemic. And we selected the guest tutors. Our initial idea was to be able to cover as many different continents as we could. But for various reasons, we weren't able, for example, to include academics from Africa, academics from Latin America. So we had invitations. We both have some connections to those places, but it was either the time difference or the non-availability of the tutors at the time. So we made an effort to at least focus on Europe, on Asia, and we had a case from the Caribbean as well. So this was the intention.
So did you use, I noticed your number was total 24. Were there a total of 24 participants in each session, or was that overall in terms of all of the modules? And if so, what was the average number of students, of participants in the module? And how did you manage them? Did you use breakout rooms? How did you go about the discussions? Because I noticed that the comments were that there didn't seem to be enough time for discussions.
Yeah.
So I'm wondering if that was incorporated into the design or the structure of the module or not.
Yeah, so 24 students were registered to do the module. And to be absolutely honest with you, most of the time, we even had more than that. We allowed other students who weren't onto the module to listen to some lectures. For example, we had some students who were not doing the module, but students talk to each other. And when they heard that there would be a lecture on a particular destination, and we got some students who were doing, for example, their bachelor's thesis on Finland and South Korea, and they wanted to listen, from the experience firsthand. So most of the time, we actually got more than 24 people in the class. So it was a very well attended module. The module and all sessions in general were delivered by Zoom. So the guest speakers were in control whether to put students into separate rooms for their activities, or whether to leave everyone in the main room and just have like a old school questions and answers. Yeah. So most guest speakers did use the breakout rooms for at least one activity.
You mentioned that was an honorarium. Was the honorarium for the participants, or was it for the presenters or your guest lecturers?
No, it was as a part of the teaching fellowship. I mean, this is how the fellowship works. So it was not, and it is not, because it still runs actually. So I should be talking in present and not in the past. Each fellowship is comprised of a number of hours, and half of the fellowship is about developing a project like this one, and the other half is teaching. So for example, I delivered this project with Marcus, but I also taught 2 more modules as a part of the fellowship. So the hours in terms of the honorarium, half of the honorarium was for the teaching the other 2 modules, and the other half was the teaching project.
Thank you. Very interesting project.
Yeah, anyone can apply for this. Actually, any institution in the world is open. I'm sure Marcus will be very open to discuss further collaboration with Abu Dhabi University and with anyone who is interested. These fellowships run, technically speaking, they run each year, and the application process is usually in November. So you can start in February, like what I did, or you can start in September. So there's 2 semesters which you can start your project.
And where does one find that information?
Just email Marcus. Marcus is the best person to give you all the details about this.
Is Marcus' information on the slides?
Yes, yes, I can put his email on the chat as well, so you can get in touch with him if anyone is interested. Just give me a second, and yes, voila. Oh, sorry, I spelled it wrong.
I don't see it yet. I don't know why.
My bad. Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, he was not able to join us today, but he will be very happy to discuss this with you. They usually don't have so many fellowships which are in tourism, but you can do this in any other subjects as long as you find someone to work with. For the fellowship to work with, you need to cooperate with a host member of staff. Like in my case, it was him, obviously, because we share expertise and we have worked together as well.
I don't see the information in the chat.
Okay, maybe because I'm just sharing it with the panelists. My bad, sorry. I will just put it to everyone. Okay. Apologize.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Happy to answer any more questions. Dr. Farouk, you are muted, I'm afraid.
Any other questions from our valuable GEP members? It's okay. So at the end, I would like to thank you, Professor Nick, on behalf of Abu Dhabi University and on behalf of the College of Business and Professor Berry, the Dean of the College of Business. We would like to thank you so much for the presentation. And here is Professor Berry to thank you as well.
Thank you, Mark. So I'm just having a quick look at the chat to see if there are any more questions there. They're not. Thanks very much, Nick, as well, for putting in Marcus's details there. Everybody can get them. And thank you again for the presentation and taking the time, and to everybody who attended as well. Just remember that you can get into the GEP portal and you can have conversations with each other there. And if anyone else would like to do a presentation such as Nick has done today, please let us know and we will try and fit you into our schedule. Again, Nick, thank you. Shireen, over to you for the last few words.
No, thank you so
My
much.
pleasure, thank you.
Professor Berry, thank you, Nick. And please convey our thanks to Professor Marius as well on our behalf. And we look forward seeing you here in Abu Dhabi very soon. And thank you all for being part of the Global Brown Bag Seminar Series and the GEP network as well. Thank you so much, and try to attend as much as you can sessions. You will receive your certificates as soon as possible to your emails. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Bye. Thank you. Bye.